The majority of studies on wireless radiation have reported effects on key health-related endpoints. So if you go to Dr. Joel Moskowitz's website at saferemr.org, a really great place to see the research and a lot of the history of this issue. Dr. Henry Lai, every couple months, will compile the research. He looks at what found effects, what didn't find effects for these various endpoints for oxidative stress, which can contribute to all kinds of chronic diseases. 89% since 1997 of the studies that have been performed that he reviewed found an effect versus no effect. Genetic impacts, 71%. Neurological impacts, 77%. Reproduction and development, 84%. It's often said that, well, the consensus is that cell tower radiation is safe. But in fact, that is absolutely 100% not true, because there are hundreds of scientists and medical doctors, in fact, thousands, that are calling for reducing exposure and taking steps to mitigate risk, not to increase exposure. This is the EMF Scientist Appeal signed by over 250 scientists from 44 nations who've published in the field of non-ionizing electromagnetic field radiation. You can go online to read the EMF Scientist Appeal. I'm going to quote from their appeal to the United Nations, to the World Health Organization, to address this issue. They talk about the effects, which include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful free radicals, genetic damages, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on general well-being in humans. And there are also many appeals where entire groups of doctors have signed on. We have that on our website at Environmental Health Sciences. We also have more published research on cell towers and health if you're interested. Everything is hyperlinked, so I try to keep it up to date. You can click on the name of the author, get to the published study or to the online link to read the whole thing. So please go to our website to learn more. A lot of times in meetings, and I have been in, I would safely say, hundreds of cell tower meetings at this point, where the wireless company will come out and say, if you're using a cell phone, you shouldn't be worried about this because, this is much less radiation than a cell phone. Well, in fact, young children are not using cell phones. And it's a really important question. Well, how much radiation are we getting when we're near a tower? So there have been a couple studies on this, and I want to highlight the study on kindergartens in Australia. They looked at several kindergartens. They looked at ones that had telecommunications antenna facility, wireless antennas within 300 meters, and those that had installations further away. And they found a nearly 3.5 times higher radiation exposure to the children who had antennas in close proximity. There was also a more recent publication by Dr. Hardell and Nilsson on RF radiation near schools in Sweden, and they found elevated levels from nearby 4G and 5G wireless network base stations. And they talk about how those levels are above the levels where experts have recommended that the limits be, because there are recommendations that have been made to mitigate levels down based on what the research has shown in terms of long-term effects, low intensity biological effects. And they found that a lot of those levels were much higher than what they found at the schools. And they say these levels may cause increased risks of both short-term and long-term negative effects on children's health. There's also a very important summary of 7 case reports that Hardell and Nilsson did on 5G facilities near people's schools, homes, and workplace, and found increased symptoms such as, just like Alfonso Bomori documented, headaches, dizziness, sleep problems, memory problems, and so forth.
I am here to talk about the cell antennas in my front yard. I can no longer sleep in my own room because of it. Please move the cell antennas so our lives can go back to normal again. Thank you.
Thanks.
My little girls, I'm a little choked up. In late December, Verizon installed a very powerful cell antenna right outside my daughter's window. About a month after the antenna was installed, both my daughters came down with cold and flu-like symptoms. Another month passed and my daughters were still ill. We began to wonder if the recently installed antennas could be affecting their health. My brother Noah, who is a scientist in the family, began researching the safety of cell antennas and the radiation that they emit. He found hundreds of studies and experts warning about the dangers of wireless radiation, including immune system suppression, which I believe my daughters have suffered, and cancer, one of the diseases we all fear the most. He's also found that guidelines designed to protect us from this wireless radiation are based on the outdated assumption that the only biological effect caused by wireless radiation is heating.
Because I was injured and my little sister was injured due to a cell tower being placed in my neighborhood. If you have followed the news, 14 of our neighbors have been harmed and 3 have cancer. We never knew this would become a living nightmare with people's cancer returning, people having to leave their homes, and worse, people becoming homeless.